The Elathi were dying, and the galaxy didn't care. Ambassador Catherine Walsh stood before the Galactic Council, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. They've lost 90% of their population to the plague. Their homeworld is collapsing. They need our help. The Elathi are a failed species, Chancellor Krex of the Hegemony stated flatly. They offer nothing, no technology, no resources, no strategic value. Natural selection demands their extinction. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Elathi were small, frail creatures who communicated through bioluminescent patterns. They'd never achieved FTL travel, never built weapons, never contributed to galactic commerce. When the plague hit their world, they'd sent desperate signals into space, signals everyone but humanity had ignored. They create art, Catherine said quietly. Their entire culture is built around it. Music that exists in spectrums we can barely perceive. Sculptures that tell stories across generations. Art doesn't power starships, the Vorthani delegate scoffed. It doesn't feed populations or win wars. The plague is natural. Let nature take its course. Motion to deny aid to the Elathi, Chancellor Krex announced. All in favor? Every hand rose except humanity's. Motion carried. The Elathi situation is closed. Catherine gathered her materials slowly. Then humanity will act alone. Laughter erupted from the assembly. You'll waste your resources on a dying race? The melody representative's harmonic voice carried amusement. How foolishly sentimental. Perhaps, Catherine replied. But we'd rather be foolish than heartless. Within days, human ships appeared in Elathi space. Not warships or traders, but hospital ships, research vessels, and transports loaded with supplies. The galaxy watched with bemused interest as humanity poured resources into what everyone considered a lost cause. Dr. James Park led the medical team that landed on the Elathi homeworld. The situation was worse than the reports suggested. Cities of living coral were bleaching white as their inhabitants died. The bioluminescent forests that served as their libraries flickered and faded. "We're too late," his colleague whispered, seeing the devastation. "No," James said firmly. "We're exactly on time." The Elathi who met them were barely 2 feet tall, their translucent bodies pulsing with weak light. When they realized the humans had come to help, not study their extinction, their patterns shifted to something the translation software labeled simply as hope. The work was grueling. Human scientists worked around the clock to understand Elathi biology, so different from any known species. The plague wasn't just killing individuals. It was erasing their collective memory, stored in their bioluminescent patterns. "It's like watching a civilization's soul die," one researcher reported. But humans had something the galaxy's superior races lacked: stubborn compassion and creative thinking. When traditional medicine failed, they tried alternative approaches. When those failed, they invented new ones. A breakthrough came from an unlikely source: a human child on one of the ships, who noticed the Elathi's light patterns resembled her LED toys programming. That observation led to the discovery that the plague was actually a form of biological malware, attacking the Elathi's natural communication system. 6 months later, the cure was distributed. The Elathi began to recover. The Galactic Council reconvened for standard business, but Chancellor Krex couldn't resist commenting. "So humanity saved their pet project. Congratulations on wasting resources." Catherine stood again. "Actually, we've come to share something the Elathi gave us in return." The lights dimmed, and the chamber filled with something unprecedented: Elathi art translated for other species' perception. Colors that conveyed emotions beyond words. Sounds that painted memories. Patterns that told the story of a species' gratitude so profound it transcended language. But more than art came through. Mathematical theorems encoded in their sculptures. Navigation techniques based on interpreting stellar radiation as music. Medical knowledge stored in dance patterns, including treatments for diseases that plagued several council species. The Elathi weren't primitive, Catherine explained. They just thought differently. What you saw as weakness, their focus on art over war, was actually their strength. They encoded everything in beauty. The chamber fell silent. They've shared their entire cultural database with humanity, Catherine continued, including something interesting, a cure for the Zarathi neural degradation syndrome. The Zarathi ambassador jerked upright. His species had suffered from the untreatable condition for millennia. They had a cure? Encoded in a light symphony about cellular harmony. They developed it centuries ago but had no one to share it with. Catherine smiled. They asked us to distribute it freely, even to those who voted to let them die. As humanity's ships delivered cures and knowledge across the galaxy, perceptions shifted. The worthless Elathi had possessed treasures beyond imagination, hidden in art everyone dismissed. The tiny bioluminescent beings, saved by the only species that saw their worth, now served as advisors to human expeditions. Their unique perception revealed solutions to problems that had stumped the galaxy's greatest minds. Years later, when asked why humanity alone had helped, Catherine's successor gave a simple answer. Because every species has something to offer. The Elathi taught us that sometimes the most valuable gifts come from those the universe overlooks. We saved them, but in truth, they saved us from becoming like everyone else. Too practical to recognize beauty, too proud to protect the weak, too foolish to understand that diversity isn't just nice to have. She paused, watching Elathi children play with human ones, their lights creating new patterns of friendship. It's necessary for survival,